I was not wearing slutty enough clothes. And so, they see this kid and they're like, well, one, you look 12. Two, you look pissed. And three, you're all covered up. So clearly you don't want anyone to talk to you.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. This week, we are talking about sounding, gender reveal parties, and having skeezy strangers run their fingers through your chest hair with novelist, poet, and activist Hayden Winston. Though he currently lives in Sacramento with his husband Tom, he was born and raised in and around Los Angeles. And it was here in West Hollywood that he started to explore the queer scene at the 18 and up night Tiger Heat. And Tiger Heat was held at the nightclub Rage, which was open for 37 years, closing in 2020.
I know Cupid because I was like, well, I'm bi. I am having difficulty explaining this to girls because it would be a situation where I would date somebody and then they'd be like, so are you gay? Or like, what's going to happen here? Leave me for a guy. Or if I was dating a guy, it would be the converse of that, So I felt a lot of like explaining myself constantly and trying to like overcompensate constantly. And I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in a situation where I could meet whoever. I'd also just gotten out of a relationship with like my first boyfriend. So I was like, okay, I'll go online. I'll put myself out there. If I meet someone, great. If I don't, whatever. And I was on there for a while and I didn't really meet anybody and it was what it was. And then I talked to two people and one of them I was like 99% matched with, but the conversation was like, hey, how's it going? Hey, it's great. How was your day? My day was good. How was your day? Like for several days of that. And then the second person was Tom.
And what percent match was it?
It was like a 77% match. So I was like,
that's all right.
We don't have that much. Yeah, I was like, we don't have too much in common to where we're going to hate each other. But, who knows? We'll see. And we went on a 4-hour first date. And yeah.
Where to?
We went first to get sushi, then to hookah, then to get ice cream. So it was like did all of those things in one day. And the reason we did that is because neither of us at the time had cars. So we had to like meet in a neutral position because, this is online dating. So I went from Glendale to Burbank. He went from Santa Clarita to Burbank because that's kind of in the middle. And we figured we'll meet in broad daylight. So if either of us are serial killers, there's some kind of record of the meeting. I had my best friend call me. My best friend called me during the date to make sure he wasn't a killer. His sister called during the date to make sure I wasn't a killer.
Wow, you took it really seriously. Your
we
safety.
Really did, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, being men, we know how men are. So
not all men. Well, I mean, like only a very small portion of men.
But also, this was like during the time of like the Craigslist killer. So you had to, we had to be extra careful.
Oh, tell me about this.
Well, there was a killer. There was I don't know too much information about it, unfortunately, but there was a gentleman who was killing people on off of Craigslist ads, meeting up with people and murdering them.
Oh, okay.
And this was a little after that. This wasn't like right during that situation, but we all had it fresh in our minds. So it was like, if you can just take an extra step and it's a first date with somebody that you never met in person before, why not? And we continued to like talk though online. And at the time it was Skype because there was no Zoom. We'd Skype each other. But yeah.
I wanted to just circle back and talk about your experience as a bisexual man seeking dating. You've talked about the experience of people being like, well, are you going to go to the other sex at some point? Did you ever have people kind of fetishize you because, well, I'm really talking about gay men, because I see lots on on like Grindr and hookup apps of like people kind of being like, I'm only interested in straight or bi men, and this kind of projection of like that they're more masculine or something.
You know what? I experienced it only online because in person I don't present super masculine. So that was never anything that anybody who knew me would project. But on the apps, yeah, when I would be on the apps, it was definitely, oh, you're bi, that's hot. And I always thought that was really weird because
it's so weird.
That, or I got the opposite. I would just get like hate about it. So it wasn't anything I ever really put in my profile because I found like the guys who were really putting in their profile were kind of seeking that attention. And I really wasn't. I don't want to be fetishized. I just wanted to be appreciated for who I was. So it's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good there.
I find it. Yeah.
I avoided that. And I definitely avoided people who were like into black guys.
Oh God. Yeah. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that this is the same thing at all, because there's many different layers, but like I'm a little bit ginger, and so I get people like who are like, hey, I'm really into gingers, and I'm like, okay.
So my husband is ginger, and I find that also a very weird phenomenon because that didn't qualify.
Because you're not attracted to
like a thing. Yeah, it wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm collecting this ginger. Like, no, I was just like, oh, he's cute, and also, oh, he's got red hair. That's cute. You know, like it was just an added thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do find that phenomenon very strange. It is very much along the same lines of like picking out one thing about someone, one characteristic, and being really in that characteristic rather than having to get to know the person, you know? Because it's like, what if you dye your hair?
Well, I mean, I think that, there's other bits of my body with hair on it that I wouldn't dye.
True.
But it's also like, it's so rigid. I just find it so rigid and weird to be like, I'm only into this kind of thing. I'm only into this. This is what I'm seeking. It's really interesting.
I never understood why people don't treat dating the way that they treat picking froyo or picking like any other kind of gelato or ice cream.
Did you say froyo?
Yes, because
so
and I say
LA.
this because have you ever watched anyone in a frozen yogurt shop or getting gelato or getting ice cream, how they're like, can I sample this? Can I sample that? And people try 21 flavors they don't even like before they get something. But when it's dating, it's, I only want to date this group. I only want to experience this. Nobody wants to try anything outside of what their flavor profile might be. And it's so weird.
Well, see, I feel bad about trying the free sample, so I just go with something. I know this is ruining your story.
If you're going to get something in the end, you can at least sample a couple of different flavors.
Well, yeah, I guess if you do have the intention of buying, it's not like being stingy and cheap. But I still feel like...
I can't do more than like 2. I've never been somebody to go in and get like 6, 7 different flavors. It's too much.
Yeah, I think like the body language of the person serving me always makes me like, oh, I'm really sorry. Oh, I'll just buy it. I'll just get everything. Just go. Let's go.
That, and I've worked retail. I've never worked like food service per se, but retail. And I can only imagine that they already hate being there. So.
And also the waste of those tiny spoons as well. Just like so many tiny spoons being wasted every day.
Choking turtles in the ocean.
Let's just take a moment. Yeah. And then so Rage in West Hollywood.
Yeah.
Why did you want to talk about Rage?
Well, so I'm 31 and Rage has been around for 37 years before it closed. So it really is a bar I grew up with. And it was one of the very first gay bars I ever got a chance to go to. For a little bit of background, I grew up in a very strict Caribbean household. So being queer in of itself, my whole life, I pretty much viewed as a sin. So when I had the opportunity to come out and really like live my truth, be myself, I, took to spaces like West Hollywood because it was the first time I saw how normalized being a queer person was. Like, that was the first time I got to see couples not being demonized, holding hands, walking down the street, kissing. My mom had queer friends, but I always saw it through the lens that she saw it through. She'd be like, it's a shame that man is gay. He's so handsome. That sort of thing, where, and we've talked about it now, and she apologizes for this, and she's very accepting of my relationship. I should give that caveat before she murders me. But at the time, she didn't know that she was doing this damage. And that's how I internalized it. So when I came out and I was like 19, 20, getting a chance to really go out to bars and experience nightlife, I also got to see just, in broad daylight, couples holding hands, walking down the street, lesbians, gays, polyamorous couples. And it was just such a refreshing view to see that these people have jobs and apartments and cars and lives. They're not just out here, committing grave sin,
I mean, they might be.
They probably are. Now that I know more about the community, let me just say.
Especially West Hollywood, yeah.
I'm like, do the gays deserve rights? But no.
Oh, let's not go any further on that.
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally joking.
So when was this the first time that you went out in West Hollywood? How old were you?
Oh, man, I was probably like 19 because I didn't do much going out at 18 to like gay bars. I was still in the closet-ish. I was trying to decide what watching so much gay porn meant and and why I still liked kissing girls. So I couldn't be like, it was that. And then 19, I was a little bit more, I'd already kissed a guy by then. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. We're going to go out. We're going to see what it's like. I'm going to go with my friends and we're going to try it out. And Rage was an 18 and over bar. So it was one of the few places you could actually get into. Mm-hmm. So that's why it was like everybody's first, gay bar, because it was 18 and over. And they had this night there called Tiger Heat. And Tiger Heat is just as trashy as it sounds. You show up in your shortest shorts, your midriff shirt. It's 18 and up, right? And they don't serve alcohol. So we would just get someone over 21 and then drink a bunch of alcohol in a car in an alleyway somewhere and then run into the club just drunk as hell. So it was only a matter of time before somebody underage got kicked out. But it was definitely a moment in time,
So what was your first night there like? Were you tanked already?
Oh, yeah. I was probably really drunk on very cheap vodka. We used to get this stuff called Gordon's, which is like rubbing alcohol. Have you ever had it?
No.
Oh, it's like 1% vodka. It's like 1% vodka. It's not, most of it is not vodka. And it burns from the moment you open the cap. Like, and it's sold, not even on the top shelf or anywhere near the top shelf of any rundown liquor store. Even like a rundown liquor store wouldn't sell it on the top shelf. It's like behind the counter, they've got to reach really low and dust it off and hand it out to you. And then they look at you like, are you sure you want to buy this? That and Pop Off was another one that we used to buy.
What's that?
Is another cheap vodka.
Oh, it's just cheap. So you were firmly in the vodka lane.
Firmly in the vodka lane at this time. Don't know why, but that was what we were able to get. I guess somebody's older brother was able to buy us vodka. So
is it like one of those things where, like when you first go to the coffee shop and there are like all of these options and you're like, I don't know what any of these are. I'm just going to order one. And then suddenly that's the only drink that you order anytime you go to the coffee shop because that's the only one you actually know what it is.
It's absolutely like that because I didn't know about whiskey. I didn't know about gin. I didn't know about wine very much. Like all we knew was, okay, we know vodka and it's clear and you can mix it with most things like Sprite and, kind of get away with it. So that I think is why we chose vodka too, because you could like put it in a Sprite bottle and walk around and,
oh, no one could
be conspicuous with it. Yeah.
Still clear.
Yeah. Whiskey we didn't like too much because of the aftertaste was a little bit stronger. I did have some friends like sneak Jack Daniels into Coke bottles. So that was another thing we used to do. But yeah, vodka for whatever reason was everybody's fave.
And so then do you remember that, like going in the first time? What was that like? What did that do to your senses?
Well, I remember very long lines and not being kind of prepared to wait in line for a while. But it
like being a diva?
Yeah, just like I was too much at 20. So 19, 20. I was just like, I can't believe we're waiting in this line. Why did we show up to this bar? What are we doing here? I probably was complaining to all my friends and they probably told me to shut up and just wait. And then by the time we got in, I remember like the music was so loud, but it was just like an awesome experience of like the music overtaking you, and then the room was very dark at the time, and they just had a couple of like those rave lights going, so you see maybe like a flash of light here and there, and then gorgeous go-go boys dancing. It was just, I was overwhelmed. I don't think I'd ever been in an environment like that up until that point.
One of the things that I'm really fascinated about with over 18 bars is what the clientele is like. Because I always assume that it should be like 18, 19, 20-year-olds. But what I've been told by other people is that actually it's a bit skeezy and that there are older people lingering. Sorry for any older people.
No, that's the funny part. When I turned like 22, we were like, we have to stop going to 18 over bars because it's just crowded with too many 18-year-olds. We're tired of that. We want to drink and hang out and like hit on people our age, was the joke. Even though they weren't that far from our age group, it felt kind of weird at that point. But as an 18-year-old being in those bars, I can tell you, it was pretty creepy. There were definitely the weird 30-year-old, guys over tipping the go-go dancers, and like good for them, they're getting the money they need, but it just felt kind of odd seeing so many older people in those spaces. Like when it is like an 18 and up night, or I'll kind of give this away because I'm not really friends with this person. I knew somebody who, when we were like 2021, was dating somebody in their 40s that they met at Tiger Heat. And we all thought it was really strange because we were like, you were 19 when you met them. They were already in their 40s. There was no reason for them to be at an 18 and up club on 18 and up night. Like specifically that night. If they had been there any other night and you'd happen to like run into them, that's one thing, but it's 18 and up night. That happened a lot where like, occasionally somebody you knew who was young would start dating somebody a lot older than them because they met at Tiger Heat, and then that's dating, but they're not really dating because that person's married or something, yeah. Yeah, it was one of those situations. So.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that when I was younger, I just probably wouldn't have questioned. And like when I was like maybe 18 or 19, I dated this guy that was in his 30s. I think he was in his 30s, maybe he was older. And I didn't really like think about it that much at the time because, he was buying me stuff. So I was like, cool, this is great. But now when I look back on it, I just think, how was he not like incredibly bored? Like, how is he not just like, oh my God, you're so stupid whenever I open my mouth?
That's the thing about it. Like we know people, I wouldn't say friends, but like we know people who are like contemplating dating people that much younger. And the conversation is always, well, what would you talk to them about? Like, what do you have in common with somebody who's 19 at 31? Like, I don't.
Yeah, and it's not not that I have a problem with age difference relationships. And like, I know I'm sounding really like judgmental in what I'm saying, but I think there's maybe a threshold. Like there's at one point, you just haven't experienced enough to be of any conversational use.
I totally agree with you. Like, my parents have a 5-year gap, so I can't, I'm not going to shit on relationships that are intergenerational at all, or where there's a gap, between people. But I definitely think that, like you said, there's a threshold where it's like, not only are they not going to be of any conversational use, but is this a wise decision for me to undertake a relationship with somebody who hasn't experienced enough of their life to give the same sort of feedback that I would get from someone who has. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's on the older person to think about. Why am I trying to seek out a relationship with somebody so much younger? Is it a control thing? Is it a power dynamic that I'm seeking? What specifically about this is attractive to me? Because if you're honest with yourself about it and you're like, hey, I want to be the advice giver who nurtures this person, and maybe I like that I make more money than them, then fine, be honest about that with yourself and that person. But I think pursuing the relationship with the pretenses that it's a relationship and you guys are equals is always gonna be false.
Well, I guess just picking up on your point, like relationships are never equal. There's always like peaks and troughs in power.
Okay, I can say that. I can definitely agree with that. What I mean by equal isn't necessarily you guys are both exactly bringing the same thing to the table at the same time always, but that there's an understanding and an
a general
equal
equilibrium.
capability for you to enter into and leave the relationship without so much like needing the other person. And I think when you get to like those large age gaps, like, okay, if you're 18 dating somebody in their 40s, you become dependent on that person in a way that if you haven't worked now, let's say you're in a relationship with them for 5-6 years. If you haven't worked at that point, you only have a high school diploma and no work experience 5-6 years long in your life. Versus if you're in a relationship like that in your late 20s, you at least have some work experience to fall back on. Do you know what I mean? Like, generally speaking, if you've worked up until that point, then you get in a relationship with somebody who tells you don't work anymore. Well, at least you have some work experience outside of your high school life to fall back on. And you have some experience in the world outside of your high school life to fall back on. Being in a relationship, I say this because my mom was married to my dad from like 18 on, and like didn't know anything after the divorce, had to figure out like how to be a whole adult and reconfigure her life, because so much of her life was dependent on having another person there who could help you figure those things out.
But not all 40-year-olds will be like, don't work, I'm going to support you.
Absolutely not. But I'm saying in those sorts of relationships where it is that sort of thing where the person is dependent on them and obviously building their life around this sort of like imbalance, it becomes challenging for them to break out. Now, other relationships where there's just an age gap, whatever, do your thing. I don't like if you have your own, you know, course of action for how you're going to run your life and you're not super dependent on this other person, and there's the normal, you know, codependencies or whatever that come with relationships, then fine, do your thing. I have no objection to it. I just think it is a little skeezy from the older person's point of view to always pursue relationships with somebody so much younger than you, because you are kind of benefiting from that person's lack of knowledge every single time, whether you admit it or not. That's the case, you know. There's only so much the younger person can know and experience in that amount of time. Even if they're wise beyond their years, even if they've had more traumatic experiences, there's just only so much you can get from life in 22 years, you know?
Yeah. Oh, so all I'll say is it's definitely not for me.
Yeah. I dated somebody not that much older. I was 21, like a fresh 21, and they were 27. And even that I thought was like, maybe not this age gap again after that relationship. Because I was like, yeah, there's a lot that like this person knows about life that I don't know. And I feel like they're constantly correcting me. That was like one of the things I hated.
He just sounds like an asshole. Or she does.
Oh, I mean, he kind of was. And like,
I mean, that's something that carries on, like, regardless of how old you are.
Yeah. And I think that's hard to do, though, is like, it's hard not to say, like, you know, oh, actually, it's this, when you know that's the case, or to like feel like you're trying to guide that person along all the time. And I'm cognizant of that, even though there's not like a big age gap between me and my husband. I try not to always give him the answer to everything unless he asks me. Because there are some times where I want to jump in and be like, hey, no, do this. And it's like, that's not my decision to make. I need to let him be his own person and make his own decisions. Yeah. So it can be difficult.
Yeah. And it's like at some point, it doesn't really matter what age you are. It's just about what experiences you've had.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Back to rage. So you said that like by 19, you'd kind of kissed your first boy. And that's when you decided like, oh, I might go and explore the scene some. Then what?
So it was kind of a whirlwind situation. Like I went out, I would go out, I would dance by myself in clubs with my friends. I would get real sad that no guys talked to me, and then I would go home. Yeah. And you know, it's funny because like, I think my expectation was not, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be the hottest guy at this bar. But it was like, well, if I go out with the intention to meet somebody, maybe I will. And then that just didn't happen. But I also wasn't like making conversations with people.
Yeah.
I was just hoping someone would like bump into me or something on the way to the bathroom or the bar, and we'd, you know, have a chat and like each other.
They do all that, the heavy lifting.
But no, I didn't.
I have a similar experience in that I used to go out a lot, and I used to go out a lot on my own. and like dance and stuff and be like, maybe someone will talk to me. But there's something about me that's off-putting to people, and it's like either resting bitch face or like I just seem like I'm in my own world or something and no one wants to interrupt. Do you have any like reflections on why no one was talking to you?
I can relate to the resting bitch face thing because that's definitely it. I have seen myself in photos where I'm not smiling and it looks like, don't approach me ever.
We need to start like some kind of support group or society or something, like overcome the stigma.
Right. And I'm also now reflecting, and I don't know if this is the case for you, but I wasn't dressing slutty enough. I was going in like, I was not wearing slutty enough clothes. And so, they see this kid and they're like, well, one, you look 12. Two, you look pissed, and three, you're all covered up.
But what were you wearing?
Clearly, you don't want anyone to talk to you. I mean, cardigans and like.
Wait, you went clubbing in a cardigan? Weren't you hot?
Well, these were like H&M cardigans. It wasn't like a
thin little.
Like
okay.
My grandpa's cardigan. Yeah, it was like thin style stuff, but it definitely not. Like I saw guys, who were like shirtless or showing it off, and I wasn't in that. Mode.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite in the harness jockstrap outfit yet.
Not like you are like now. Yeah.
Not like I am now. Yeah. Every time I go out, grocery store. That's my my outfit.
So you think like you were just not slutty enough? That's a horrible message to send to.
Yeah, kids, be sluttier.
If you want people to talk to you in the club, just take a few layers of clothes off. Yeah, no,
but you know what I mean by that too is like there's also a vibe that goes with it where people pick up on like, oh, okay, you're interested. You want to talk to other people. You're here for it. I think I was so in my own head about what I looked like and if I had enough muscles and if I was tall enough and all of that, because being, 5'6" and not,
Oh, you're 5'6".
ripped.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. And I'm not my husband's like 6 feet, right? Like whenever I would see stuff on Grindr, it's like a description of my husband. And and then me on the other hand, I'm fit, but 5'6", everyone's like, oh, a short guy. It's not my thing. So I already had like hangups about that. I already had enough hangups about seeing all the like into black guys on Grindr or not into black guys, which was the more prevalent thing that I saw on Grindr. So I was kind of like, okay, I don't really know what I'm going to get out of this, but I'm going to show up and see what happens. And then when nothing would happen, it would be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So
were you like, okay, well, I didn't pick up this evening or no one talked to me this evening, no big deal. Or did you then kind of beat yourself up about it and internalize and blame yourself?
A little bit of both. I think as time went on, I just kind of learned, no big deal. But in the first couple of times it happened, I was definitely, I beat myself about it. I know one time I went with a friend who did pick up someone, and they were like making out and I became the third wheel and I cried. And it's so embarrassing.
Sorry.
I'm so much older now though, so I can laugh at it. No, it's funny. It was like, I didn't do it in a way that like they saw, but my friend noticed later and it was like I was dancing and crying. It was one of those kind of situations. I mean, now it's so fucking stupid. Like now I would laugh at myself about that. But at the time, I just was like, all of my self-worth is in whether or not men find me attractive because I've been dating women unsuccessfully for so long. So it was like, it can't be unsuccessful at dating women and men. And that's how I looked at it too at the time, was like, I'd had girlfriends and didn't really work out, right? So it's kind of like, well, maybe I'm just not good at this like dating girls thing. And then it was like, and I'm not good at dating guys either. This sucks.
Wait. Did you go into like heading out on the queer scene and like trying to date men with the mentality of, oh, I'm giving up on women, it's too hard?
No, because like I still dated girls a little bit in between. So it wasn't like I was like, I'm done with women. But I was definitely like, it should be easier with men. This is all I've heard is it's easier with men. So like, I was like, yeah, great. I should be able to go into this and score big time. And that was not the case.
Yeah, well, yeah. Whoever gave you that advice was a bit of an idiot, really. Unless they were only talking about definitely. Sex.
Which probably was the case. And it probably was like, well, it's easier to like find a guy who you want to have sex with, or a guy that will be interested in having sex with you, even if you're not necessarily attracted to that person on multiple levels. So I'm like, okay, I see now what you meant. That is easy. Yes, that's not what I'm looking for.
Can we talk about like what West Hollywood is like? Because I don't know. I've never been. I just imagine it being very cis, white, gay men.
Yep, you described it. I don't know how it is now. It's been a couple of years since I've had a chance to go there and really experience it. But that was pretty much it. I mean, we'd see maybe like a couple of lesbian couples. I know in the recent years, a lot of drag queens from like RuPaul's Drag Race have moved down there. So I'm assuming there's a little bit more diversity in terms of, that now. But, for the most part, going to the club and going out in the club scene, like definitely very much cis, white, gay men. And then we get some like straight dudes who come over there too. But even the go-go boys, I mean, they all kind of look the same. It's the very, it's that same look and style and
hairless.
It definitely felt a little bit, hairless, just like, and ridiculous. Like I live in the gym 24/7, which if you do, great. I could never. But like, I appreciate it. It's like, this is awesome. But you definitely dedicate a lot of your time to this. And then like, that's hard to do for a lot of people.
And in 20 years, like it's kind of like pointless.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know, but it definitely that. And that was discouraging me for a long time. I didn't go. I think that's one of the reasons why I wasn't a little bit sluttier, because I was like, well, I'm not really like the type. So showing off my body really wouldn't make any sense. And then it wasn't until years later, and Tom and I were about to move to Sacramento, and we went down to West Hollywood with friends to like celebrate, that I was like, I love my body. I don't care anymore about being the type. And I went in like a harness and a leather jacket and had like the time of my life. Got free drinks from bartenders. Like, it was great.
Oh, see, well, there's a good lesson.
Straight women came up to me and harassed me. It was,
So, and this is good. This is good.
Well, that I could take or leave. Sometimes it's like, as a bi guy, it's weirdly validating, not gonna lie. Especially since I've been in a relationship with a man for, 7 years. So it's not like I'm like having a lot of interaction with women. So when it does happen and a woman hits on me by accident or something, I'm like, oh great, I'm still attractive to ladies. But at the same time,
you lose your attractiveness.
It's like, right. Did it fade? Are they like, he's too, cause I grew up with women who were like, he's a little too gay, like, and hearing that sometimes like was crushing, or women who didn't date bi guys specifically because they're like, I want a bi guy, but not a like effeminate bi guy. Right. And it's like, why not? We could paint each other's nails. You never know what you're getting, but yeah, so I kind of was on guard for that, I think, a lot. And so maybe internally there's a little bit of that, like, oh nice, there's a little bit of validation, but for the most part it is kind of off-putting.
Well, and I'm thinking of a particular type of straight woman that would go to a gay bar and leer inappropriately at someone in a leather jacket and a harness. So that might be where my response
not just leer, run their hands on my body without permission. That is definitely was interesting. Because like, your torso is exposed, so it's, people just feel like they can come up and touch you and walk away.
What is that? What is the psychology behind that?
With straight women in gay spaces, I think they feel like there's the removal of the het man, so they're not afraid.
Suddenly I'm the predator.
That makes them the powerful aggressor. Yes. It's like, now I'm the predator and look how much power I have. It's because there is power in that, we don't talk about that a lot, but a lot of the reason why people prey on other people is because they at some point have felt like they've had a lack of power in their lives. And so I think, that is interesting, because it's like, yep, I get to be, the straight man and drink too much and catcall and harass the drag queens.
He must love it because he's dressed that way. Yeah,
right. Like, look at how you were dressed.
Oh, I never thought of it in that way. How interesting. And so then going into those spaces where there is a very defined type and lots of people are striving to live up to that type, was that intimidating, or was that freeing because you could never live up to that?
It was intimidating at first, and it became freeing because I accepted that, like, this is not ever going to be me. And this is also not the only way that somebody in the community needs to look, feel, be. It was weird because when we came to Sacramento and went to our first gay bar here, just like on a house hunting trip, I saw like heavier go-go boys and I almost had a heart attack because it was like, wow, they hiring everyone, like skinny dudes, thick dudes. Like it was just weird because like West Hollywood only has that muscle type, and obviously not all men look like that. So it's like you either all sourcing from the same place, or you've got a endless parade of muscle boys just waiting to do these jobs. And the reality is, because of LA and because of the fact that it's the film industry and the television industry, you do have an endless parade of muscle boys moving from all over the country to not necessarily be go-go boys, but to work in the industry, and they can do this at night and go on auditions in the daytime. So the standard becomes set with this unrealistic version of beauty that it's really just the most quote unquote beautiful people sourced from random places. This isn't what the landscape would look like if you just grew up in Los Angeles, And when you go to other towns, you see that and you're like, crap.
Wow, ordinary people. Yeah. Because there is that weirdness. I remember like when I started going out and it was like everyone hairless and shiny and like well oiled as well. People just like oiled it, like
jacked, just like huge and oiled. And you're like,
and just like white teeth and like, just these really kind of impossible. Sorry, white teeth isn't something for me to pick on because that's quite easy to achieve, but like, just I'm too lazy.
No, it's impossible.
And just, I remember just being like, well, like, fuck my drag, right? Like, I don't fit in here at all. Like, I don't look anything like this. But then that was kind of like, well, cool, because no one's looking at me. So I can just dance and I can just be myself.
I had to stop myself from snapping when you said "fuck my drag." I too am a Kennedy Davenport stan. Love it. No, I you know what? That's exactly what it is. It's like once it hits you that like, okay, I'm not a Ken doll. I never will be on steroids, and that's fine. You just stop worrying about it.
But yeah, like it was kind of tempting to try and fit in for a while. And I remember like trying on those kind of, I was going to say cloaks, but I don't mean cloaks. Like just trying to fit in. And like, I think I vetoed my chest hair once.
I was going to say, did you wax? Did you go to the gym?
I never waxed.
3 times a week.
I've never waxed. Have you ever waxed?
I've never waxed, but I also was like relatively hairless until like my late 20s.
Oh, really?
So yeah, like I had like hairy legs, but like not a lot of body hair. So it's not, even still, like I don't have a lot of like chest hair or anything like that. So it's not.
But it started showing up in your late 20s.
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah, no, waxing, like I think I'm just too lazy to book the appointment. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to experience.
Yeah, I mean, do you have tattoos?
Yes.
So you can handle waxing.
Yeah, well, I don't know, like, because the ball sack.
Oh, yeah. See, there's just certain things. I don't know if I would prefer to just wax or continue with my current method of shaving.
With my just current method of doing nothing. I don't know. It would be interesting. Maybe one day I will. Maybe that should be like the next episode of the show.
You've got to trust somebody too to let them wax your balls.
Do you? If they're wearing like the uniform and you're in a salon, like that's enough, isn't it?
True. I guess. I would just be like, can I get a piece of leather to bite on? Might be like a fun, cute little kink experience, you know?
Yeah, and I think like you should try and experience as many things as you can in life. So maybe I will book that ball waxing session. If we could go back to West Hollywood quickly, I've heard that like colloquially it was referred to as Boys Town, and now they're trying to phase that out and call it the LGBT Rainbow District.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
So here's the thing. There are the number of like LGBT spaces in the country are shrinking, and the number of lesbian spaces are already nil to none.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to open it up and trying to be more inclusive to not just the lesbian community, but to the trans community, to every other letter in the acronym, I think is helpful. It does feel like you either have to be a gay man and be in those spaces, or you don't belong. And so I think removing Boys Town as sort of the colloquialism and going with something else is a nice shift. It's just kind of an evolutionary thing. A lot of the other communities that had Boys Towns, like Chicago and even like San Francisco's area, are kind of like changing that as well. So it's just, we're going with the times. What do you think about it?
So yeah, I'm totally down for the change in name. And I do think that, we should move with the times. I just wish the new name wasn't so boring.
I agree with you. The new name is boring.
Yeah, it's just so fusty. I wish like it was, I don't know. Because Boys Town is kind of like, it sounds exciting and like it could be a real town.
Doesn't it? I Googled it when I first heard the term Boys Town. I like Googled it to be like, where is this? And the most common Boys Town that gets referred to here in the States is Chicago's Boys Town. Which I forget the actual name of the community now. And the community is trying really hard to like, when you Google it, the name of the community comes up, not Boys Town. They're trying to like scrub the net of Boys Town.
What? So you're saying they're trying to like bury their history?
Yes, very much so. Like you can't find it in the Wikipedia article in the first, paragraph. It's like way down. Also known as Boys Town, formerly known as Boys Town. Like they're really trying to bury it. But here in Sacramento, we have a little square. It's literally like you could walk around the whole square and be done and see everything queer in all the city, called Lavender Heights. And I actually think that's a little bit cuter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we're going to Lavender Heights. Even though it's a really small area, I wish it was a little bit larger. Because it can even really be a gayborhood, honestly. Like they've had a Rainbow Fest here and they blocked off one street.
At least you're not getting tired from all the walking.
True. But I mean, growing up with West Hollywood and being able to walk down Santa Monica all the way to a certain point and see nothing but just, gays and to know that the gays own the houses in the area, it was a lot different. To go to the Starbucks and to see a bunch of gays there, was a lot different than, right when we turn the corner, we're assaulted by straight couples.
Oh no. I mean, I don't mind it, but there's just so much of it going around.
I just wish they would, some of my siblings are straight. Okay, I have straight sisters, I have straight brothers. I love them. I accept them no matter what. I just wish that they would do it behind closed doors and not, rub it in everybody's faces so much,
Yeah.
It's like they're out here with the PDA and the weddings and the baby reveal parties. It's a lot.
Have your siblings had baby reveal parties?
No, thank God.
Okay.
Well, actually, let me not say that, because I think that my niece, who I love and adore so much, might have been a gender reveal party baby. But I don't think a cannon was involved.
So no property was destroyed?
No property was destroyed.
I mean, a reason to party, I guess. So that's great. But yeah, the whole thing is really super odd. I wonder what percentage of people don't find out the gender of their baby now.
You know what? So I'd be so curious to know that, because I have two sisters and two brothers. Tom has a sister, and only one of my siblings, my sister, has a baby so far and is married, and then Tom's sister is married and has a son, and or a child, we should say, because we were very cool with being like, we're calling him Nephiling at first, or them, or Nephiling. We're using like they them pronouns when she was pregnant. She very much chose like neutral colors for the child and everything. Now we do use he him pronouns, so I guess I could kind of just do that, because we're kind of gendering the kid now that he's like here and I guess looks like a boy. But we're also like, she buys him Barbies. So like she's being very inclusive with how she's raising him, and we're not so much like, you're a boy, you need to have blue stuff and you need to play with fire trucks. Yeah. That's the opposite of how she's doing it. And I don't think she found out the gender. She was a C-section, but I don't think she ever asked them for the gender of the child. We didn't know whether we were going to have a nephew or a niece, like right up until the moment.
See, I don't know what I would do. Like, I'd like to say that, oh, I'll just find out, like, when it comes, like, no big deal. But I don't know. I probably would get really curious, especially if it was growing inside me.
Yeah, I could see that. That's why I didn't blame my sister. I'm like, look, you had to carry this thing for 9 months. You do whatever you want.
And all anyone wants to talk about is the baby, right? Like you can't escape it. So you may as well find out something about it.
Yeah, they're going to ask you, like, so, do you know the jet? And you feel weird being like, no, I don't.
Yeah. Like you don't want to let people down. You want to bring news to them. Like, I know something new. They have 2 legs.
But they were also cool with saying, we know the sex of our child, but not the gender, because gender is your identity, and that will form later. So all we know is that he's male. And we were like, okay, we can go with that. And that's kind of how I think we're operating. Is like, we know this child's sex, but we don't know this child's gender yet.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens. Like, I already feel like I'm like part of like this forgotten generation that like didn't ever have those queer role models or kind of visibility or the normalizing of gender diversity or diverse sexualities. And so I see people that are like even 10 years younger than me or 15 years younger than me that is so just like whatevs, cool, whatevs. And they still weren't part of like the generation that kind of grew up with people not enforcing gender on them in early childhood and things. So I find it really fascinating, like what is going to be happening in like 20 years time when these kids are adults.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that because I have, like I said, younger brothers, and there's 3 and 6 years younger than me. And one of them is in a relationship with somebody who's non-binary. And that was a huge change for our family because like I thought I was the revolutionary one being queer, but then my brother comes along,
you annoyed?
Being a straight, well, he's a straight cis, het male, and he's got a non-binary partner. I'm like, great, just had to, one up me.
Are you always trying to undermine them?
Well, you guys aren't as queer as we are. No, not at all. I love and support them. I think it's awesome. I think it's cool that he was able to like think outside of the box and not, like I said, he's not that much younger than me to the point where I would expect him, to be on a completely different wavelength. So to know he's just like, oh yeah, cool, whatever, was so refreshing. And I look forward to seeing a generation where I was talking about this with my mom recently. I said, when queer couples meet each other, we usually ask 2 questions. How did you meet? And are your families cool? Because those are the 2 main things that we encounter as a community. I think in general, when queer people meet each other, period, even if you're not a couple, it's usually like, hey, is your family cool? That question always comes up at some point. And I can't wait to see a generation where that's not a question, where that's not the majority thing that people think right away. When I meet my straight friends, I'm not thinking, does your family accept you? Do they accept this relationship you're in? Unless they're with like an axe murderer or something. It's just never a thought. It's generally speaking, you would assume they have a good relationship unless they tell you otherwise.
But I mean, and it's also like, we're talking about these extreme versions of things that happen in families where there's a breakdown in communications and someone is forced to leave the family home and is no longer in contact or supported by their parents. Whereas in reality, that might not happen, but there's lots of small, aggressive, passive-aggressive digs over time that still erodes that relationship and still has a massive impact on the individual.
Right. To be perfectly honest with you, that's sort of like what I experienced. Like I said, my family's great now and we're all good. But I know in the beginning, I had a lot of little challenging comments, misconceptions, things that I had to help them overcome that was already difficult for me on top of coming out. It would have been nicer to just come out to a family who already had the acceptance built in, to a certain degree, versus like, okay, now let me explain to you what this means. And no, this does not mean that I'm going to do this,
I'm not going to go to a bar with a harness on and a leather jacket. Of course not.
I'm not going to be in the parade, Mom, the next year I'm in the parade.
My mom made me promise I wasn't going to have bus sex. Like, what?
Really?
No, she didn't make me promise, but she was just like, I think it's really disgusting. I don't think you should do it. And I was like, no, of course I won't. But like, of course I will. Of course I will.
Right. Yeah, you're just not going to
now.
tell your mom about it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think for my mom, what made her comfortable with me coming out was that I came out and, was bi and stuff. So she was like, oh, well, you could still end up with a woman. And then I married a man.
Joke's on you.
So that's not happening. All the butt sex all the time.
But what if she's still hanging on for she's just waiting for your relationship to dissolve? Sorry, I shouldn't bring that up.
No, if she's just secretly hoping that my relationship either dissolves or that I'm a top. I mean, it is what it is.
Why would your parents not want you to have all of the joy, all of the experiences? I just don't get it.
Because they didn't, they didn't.
But
they lived very rigid
So you're saying your
lives.
mum and dad never did that stuff?
Oh, God, I don't even know, and I don't want to know. I don't want to get into that. No.
If either of you are listening, by the way, hello.
I will say I know too much about my mom. Well, both my mom and dad now, because now they're so much older and they just feel like, oh, we can just tell you things. You're an adult. And so I know so much about their sex lives now that I would not put it past them. Let me just put it there.
Well, why would that? You're making it sound like it's a shameful thing.
No, in my mind, they've done everything.
Okay.
I'm assuming they've done everything, and I accept that they're sexual beings, and that is their right. But I don't ever want to think the details.
Yeah, and if you've got a hole, you should find out what fits in there,
how it works. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Although, can we talk about what's the thing where you put the metal rod?
Nope. Sounding? Absolutely not.
Sounding?
Absolutely not. Okay, no kink shaming. I don't believe in kink shaming. I'm for what everybody, whatever anyone wants to try at any time. I also think that with your partner, you should be really open to trying things they want to try.
Yeah. Okay, just get to your point.
But I also think that no, absolutely not would I ever do that.
I don't know.
I personally could never.
I never have. But I just,
Would you rather fist or sound?
To be fisted or?
Yes.
I think I'd rather be fisted.
I was just going to say, I've never done that either, but I feel like I would much rather encounter that than sounding. Because I feel like it's
it's more common.
Right, and once you're dilated to a certain point, you don't feel anything. It's whatever,
That applies in both holes though, doesn't it?
But your urethra doesn't dilate like that. It doesn't naturally.
Doesn't it?
A little bit, I feel on the inside, so urine and jizz can get out, but not it's not doing it for insertion. Do you know what I mean?
Whereas the butt.
Right, well, also, but the muscles open and contract and release in a way that there's no, that's not happening unless you're shooting liquid out from inside your urethra.
There has to be something to it though, right?
Oh, I think it's probably the cold sensation of the metal. Can you ever touch cold metal? That's kind of a weird, nice thing. Yeah. So I can only imagine that probably feels really nice. And then with most kinks, I think it's also I shouldn't be doing this taboo of it. That's exciting, but I don't know what else.
It does make,
maybe being occupied, feel
Yeah, I do have a bodily reaction when I think about it.
Yeah, I know I couldn't do it because I wince at the thought. So I'm that would never be for me. But I totally, I think it's cool.
I think it's cool. I think it's cool. You clearly don't think it's cool because it's not for you. But what about the people who get their penises split in half?
That also not for me.
That is so fascinating.
Right? I'd rather do the tongue thing.
Oh, I wouldn't. Yeah.
The tongue splitting. It's still not for me, but if it was a choice between the two, I would much rather do the tongue.
Even though everyone can see your tongue all the time.
Yeah. Honestly, if you're going to go wild, get a Prince Albert, that's as far as I think I would go.
Oh, yeah. See, I think mine would just get so rusty with piss. And how much cleaning do you have to do?
I don't know, and I'm uncut, so it would be a hassle anyway. So I would.
Is it worse if you're uncut?
I would think that you have to
You would.
I've never seen an uncut dick with a Prince Albert.
Well, you need to come to the UK.
True. Yeah. We're the anomaly here. It's like, I remember that in high school too, having to be like, it's fine. Most men in the world are uncommon. Like having to like Google that and then come back and tell everyone, you've never been to Europe.
But so like people would pick on you because of it.
I mean, not, but like there are a couple of girls who make, turtleneck jokes or, you know what I mean? There's a joke about it. But it's funny because it's like, haha, you still had it in your mouth. I don't care. What difference does it make to me whether you joke about it later? It doesn't make a difference to me.
But it's also really interesting. Like when you have your foreskin, your head is more sensitive. Like, so why are we acting like that's a bad thing?
Well, it's just lack of education, It wasn't until I got to like a community college class with everybody when we were talking. I took a human sexuality course, and the professor put up like 6 or 7 different penises and like 6 or 7 different vaginas, and she's like, "These are vulva, these are penises."
You mean pictures different. Of them, right? They shouldn't bring that. Okay.
Yes, pictures, and she was like, this one curves to the left, this one's to the right. Some of you probably have, downward curve, upward curve. I mean, it was just jarring because, like, you could see everyone in the room recognizing themselves, and the penis or the vagina that they saw on screen, but also not wanting to say that they recognized themselves.
So like doing a BuzzFeed personality quiz.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But it was also very freeing, and that class got really inappropriate. I loved it.
So back to Lavender Heights.
Yes.
Yep. back to the LGBT Rainbow District. What would you call West Hollywood other than that name?
Oh wow. I don't know.
The queer quadrangle? Is it in a quadrangle? Can we make that fit?
I don't think it would fit because I don't know if it's in a quadrangle.
Could we change the boundaries?
Yeah, I don't know. You're right. We're just gonna make it a quadrangle now. There's no you can't like queer circle. You can't. None of that really works. Boys Town kind of did work. It's just Queer Town doesn't work. That seems like a slur. That feels like a slur. Cute Town.
Yeah. What would you call it? Because you can't be like the homo hood, and you can't be
right. Port of Gay, no, doesn't work.
The Avenue de Queer. Yeah, okay, all right. Well, maybe the people that came up with the name LGBT Rainbow District had these conversations and were like, oh, it's too hard.
Yeah, they're like, look, just throw in the acronym and Rainbow District. I mean, honestly, Rainbow District would be kind of cute.
Oh, yeah.
I think they need to just lop off if they just called it the Rainbow District, I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, who should we write to about that?
Get on it. I'll get you some information.
Thank you. So if we go back to Rage, what, obviously you haven't lived in LA for a really long time. What was it like finding out that it was shutting?
Oh, it was so sad. I actually read it online because we were going back to LA to plan a little visit with family. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll go to West Hollywood and check out some of the spots I haven't been to in years. And I Googled Rage just to see. I was like, I know it's 18 and over, but let's see if they have a non-18 and over night or what's going on.
Or maybe I can be one of the skeezy old guys.
And right, I can be in the corner just throwing dollar bills at, men 10 and 15 years younger than me. But no, I looked online and apparently it closed due to unpaid rent, which was really sad because, during the pandemic, a lot of businesses are hit with that same sort of scenario. So.
Mm-hmm. What do you think Rage taught you about yourself?
I learned that I wasn't as odd as I thought I was. I definitely learned that the queer community is expansive and wide, and that there are very, very old people and very, very young people in the community. And, I think it's something that, there are older gays, but there's not a lot of older gays in media, right? Usually you see young gay people, and it's always a thing that's depicted for young people. So if you're young growing up in that kind of environment, you kind of think well, do we just age out? What happens to old gays? Where do they go?
And the answer is Palm Springs, right?
Right, exactly. Palm Springs, or Arizona if they don't have money. But it's nice to see a lot of them still out in the community, still around. It was just good to be in a space where I didn't feel other. So I think Rage kind of gave me that opportunity for the first time to know that, okay, well, yeah, you might be otherized in some other, sections of the city and portions of your life, but you can always come find community.
Oh. Do you have any memories from Rage or from clubbing on your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, please get in touch. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories. Go to lostspacesPodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me what you got up to. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod. You can find out more about Hayden at his website, haydenwinston.com, and he has just published a queer coming-of-age novel titled Wildflowers. I'll make sure to include the link to that book in the show notes for the program. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, Well Grown Boys, which is also playing underneath my talking right now on all streaming platforms. If you liked this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform, or just told people who you think might be interested. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost